Hi there, my name is Siakhatladi. This here is African Disclosure, and this is our program for today. Right, so welcome to the show. As we know, in South Africa, June is all about youth. June is Youth Month, and it's a time where we remember the courage of the young people of 1976. Young people who stood up and challenged injustice and really demanded a better future for themselves. But Youth Month is also about looking ahead, right? So across Africa, young people now make up the majority of the population. And they're not only the leaders of tomorrow, but they're increasingly shaping the politics, economies, innovation, and public life of today. But the very sad truth is, many young people continue to face serious challenges, including unemployment, inequality, poverty, limited access to opportunities, and really it just seems like young people are uncertain about the future. So as governments, institutions, and communities, as we're looking and scouring the world for solutions to some of the African continent's biggest challenges, youth empowerment must remain. Youth empowerment must remain high on the African agenda. Investing in young people's leadership, education, skills, and their entrepreneurial potential is absolutely essential to building the kind of Africa that we want to see. So, on our program today, on this version of African Disclosure, we're going to be looking at two initiatives placing young people at the very center of South Africa's future. First, we look at the 2026 Learner Leadership Summit, where learner representatives from across the country gathered to discuss democracy, leadership, accountability, and active citizenship. And right there, we are going to be hearing from the Minister of Education, Siviwe Gwarube. And then we're going to be turning our attention to agriculture, where the Department of Agriculture's Agritech Youth Expo has been showcasing young innovators and entrepreneurs using technology to transform farming and strengthen food security. For African Disclosure, my name is Siakhatladi, and I know you want to make sure to stay with us. Let's get it going. All right, so let's get into it. South Africa's democracy, right? South Africa's democracy doesn't only depend on our elected leaders, but also on our citizens, and particularly citizens who understand that they need to participate, they need to be accountable, and they need to care about the public service that serves them. So that understanding that citizens need, it doesn't begin in adulthood, rather. No. The understanding of participation, accountability, and public service, that needs to begin in schools. So the 2026 Learner Leadership Summit brought together learner representatives from across South Africa under the theme, Born of Resistance, Driven by Purpose, Leading the Future of Learning. That's the theme that they gathered under. And the summit forms part of Youth Month commemorations marking 50 years since the Soweto uprising and aims to strengthen democratic participation and leadership. Now, the summit highlights an important question for South Africa and indeed for the African continent. And it's that how is it that we prepare young people to not only inherit leadership positions, because young people will inherit leadership positions no matter what, right? It's the nature of life. You are born, you live, and then you die. So inevitably, our leaders are going to die, and we're going to need to step up. So the problem is not whether we inherit leadership positions, we will. There's no two ways about it. But the actual question is, how do we exercise leadership responsibility? Are we ready to exercise leadership responsibly, rather? So the context that we need to consider this question in is that we do live in a rapidly changing world, right? Global power dynamics are shifting. AI is transforming the world of work and all the industries that young people are going to be stepping into. Climate change is affecting communities and economies. And at the same time, Many African countries are experiencing a growing young population whose aspirations are going to shape the future of the continent, whether we like it or not. So for South Africa, the urgency is also particularly clear. Young people continue to face high levels of unemployment. Many schools struggle with resource constraints. Communities are grappling with crime, violence, and social instability. Young South Africans are also navigating challenges that are linked to social cohesion, inequality, and lack of access to opportunities. So it's clear that young people are stepping into a difficult world, and they've got the responsibility to lead in this difficult world that they're stepping into. So addressing these issues that the young people face is more than a policy discussion, right? It requires more than a policy discussion. It's not just about talking, but it requires the creation of a generation of leaders that are equipped with the skills to engage constructively, to solve problems, and to strengthen our democratic institutions. This is one of the reasons that learner representative councils and youth leadership initiatives have become so important. Addressing delegates at this Learner Leadership Summit, Basic Education Minister Siviwe Kwarube urged learners and learner leaders to become champions of democracy, champions of inclusion, and champions of school safety. She emphasized that leadership should be rooted in service, responsibility, and respect for human rights. The minister also challenged young leaders to reject violence, discrimination, and anti-migrant sentiment. I can't stress this enough, particularly in the time that we're living in right here in South Africa. It's us young people who need to be stepping up and saying, no, you will not harm my brothers and sisters that come from outside of South Africa. You will not pull my brothers and sisters from outside of South Africa. You will not pull them out of school. And all of this needs to happen while young people are helping to build safer and more inclusive school communities and communities in general. The minister further stressed that democratic values must be actively protected and that learner leaders have an important role to play in creating school environments where every learner feels safe, respected, and included. So the message was clear. Leadership is not about status, guys. The status will come. One day when, as a young person, I'm looking at you, any young person, one day when you are the president, when you are the premier, when you are the mayor, the status will come. But it's not about the status, it's about service. It's about serving your community. In fact, that's where the status should come from, right? The reason we should be respecting our leaders is because of the work our leaders do for us. And you see it very quickly in South Africa. You see how quickly as a leader you can become a joke, how quickly you can become a meme, how quickly we can lose respect and start calling you all sorts of funny names. And that happens when we feel as though your leadership does not serve us. And with that in mind, that leadership is about service and not about status. With the idea in mind that young leaders are going to be incredibly important for the African future and the South African future. With the fact in mind that young people have a very big job to do in terms of leadership today. I want to take us right there to the Learner Leadership Summit. With all of that in mind, I want to take us there and I want us to listen to some of the key moments from Minister Kwarube's address at the 2026 Learner Leadership Summit. So without any further ado, I'm happy to introduce these moments from Minister Kwarube's speech.
Great Minister, you actually today, earlier on during your keynote address, appealed to young people to protect all sorts of people amid illegal immigration threats, as you would know that there is a deadline of the 30th of March. Why is it so important to actually encourage young people to unite and, of course, protect all sorts of people, including all races in South Africa, as we face this problem of illegal immigration?
Look, I mean, my message was quite clear that I think young people should be productive in our society, that they need to stand up for each other. They also need to make sure that they stand up for people who don't look or sound like them. We're a country that is values driven, that is guided by the constitution. And really, mine was to say that these are the future leaders of our country. And democracy is built not only in parliaments or cabinet rooms, but it's built in classrooms. And these young people are showing what is possible when one picks up their hand and says, I want to serve.
And now, Bafana Bafana playing tomorrow. Any message?
Wishing them all the very best. I may not be able to stay up until 3 a.m., but I'll certainly, the first thing I do when I wake up in the morning, I'll check the score. All the very best.
Right, so those remarks by Minister Siviwe Garube highlight the importance of preparing young people to become active citizens and leaders within their communities. But leadership is not only expressed in politics, governance, or public service, right? It's also found in innovation. It's also found in entrepreneurship and the ability to solve practical challenges that are facing society. One sector where young South Africans are increasingly demonstrating this potential is in agriculture. And that's where I want to move on to next. So, agriculture remains one of South Africa's most important economic sector. We're a very, very heavily export-based and agricultural-based economy. That's just true. Our agricultural sector contributes significantly to food production, the livelihoods of rural communities, exports, and employment. But the agricultural sector also faces considerable challenges. Challenges like climate variability, constraints in water. South Africa is a very dry country. Yeah, water is still going to be a big, big problem that our agricultural sector has to face. The input costs of doing farming are rising. Disease outbreaks. We've been dealing with foot and mouth disease for however long now. Market volatility is another problem that they face. And really, the need for greater sustainability. All of these problems continue to place pressure on farmers and producers. And at the same time, South Africa faces the ongoing challenge of youth unemployment, particularly in rural areas. People are not working. Young people are not working. So increasingly, perhaps it's time to start thinking that technology and innovation need to play a crucial role in addressing these challenges. And this is not controversial, right? This isn't a big idea. This isn't anything new. I'm pretty sure everybody knows this. But it's a fact. And technology and agriculture also are becoming increasingly intertwined. So from precision agriculture and data-driven farming to smart irrigation systems, drones, digital marketplaces, and climate-smart production methods, agricultural technology is changing the way food is produced around the world. So recognizing this potential, the potential of bringing technology and agriculture together, I mean, it's not even bringing them together because they're already inextricably intertwined, right? But recognizing the potential of leaning into the relationship between agriculture and technology, the Department of Agriculture hosted the Agritech Youth Expo in Bloemfontein. The event placed young producers, innovators, and entrepreneurs at the center of conversations about the future of agriculture. It showcased youth-led agricultural products, technological innovations, which we're going to hear about in this interview that I've put together now. They showcased digital solutions designed to strengthen productivity, sustainability, and economic participation. And they just showcased the extreme talent and extreme hunger that young people have in this country. The expo also reflects a broader recognition that young people need to play a greater role in shaping Africa's agricultural future. There, I'm not even going to lie to you. Agriculture is not the most sexy place to work, right? When we think of agriculture, a lot of young people might think, I don't want to get dirty. So agriculture can be viewed by young people as a traditional sector, maybe that offers limited opportunities, right? But today's agricultural economy increasingly requires the skills of young people in technology, in data analysis, in engineering, in business development, in innovation. And because of how big our agricultural sector is, young people can't afford to stay out. And in fact, there's a lot of money to be made. As much as farming may not be the sexiest work, farming may not be the most romantic work, you don't want to get your hands dirty, but there's money to be made, guys. Recognizing this, across South Africa, various programs have sought to encourage greater youth participation in agriculture. They recognize the importance of developing future agricultural leaders and entrepreneurs. And the stakes are high, guys. A stronger agricultural sector can help improve food security. It can create the employment opportunities that we've been crying about. It can support rural development and contribute to inclusive economic growth. So the question is whether a new generation of technologically skilled agricultural entrepreneurs can help to unlock all of that potential that exists right here in this country. And to discuss all of this, as well as the Agritech Youth Expo and the opportunities it presents for young people, I'm going to be joined by Matlatsi Sloane. Mr. Sloane is the Deputy Director for Sector Transformation Program Support at the Department of Agriculture, Land Reform and Rural Development. So he's someone who is working in this field every day, and he's got some very, very interesting stuff to say. In our interview, he spoke about the opportunities that exist already for young people in agriculture, and he spoke about some of his ideas about what we need to do to build more opportunities for young people. And I really want you to pay attention to some of the excellent innovations that are coming out of this youth expo, this Agritech Youth Expo, because some really outstanding technology is being developed, and it's being developed by young people like you and I. It's being developed by young people who see a gap and try to fill in the gap. I can't even get into all of these innovations that he's named, but one of them that stood out to me was like a marketplace. So almost like a Amazon.com or a takealot.com, but for agricultural produce and mass buying agricultural produce. That's a cool idea. We spoke about drones, we spoke about irrigation technology, we spoke about a whole lot. And I think this is a very, very important interview because, like I said, South Africa is a very big agricultural economy, a very export-based economy, and we're going to need our young people in the agricultural sector. Mr. Sloane spoke in our interview about the problem of the aging farmer. If you go to farms today, you find old people plowing the land, you find old people working the farms, but it's the nature of life that those old people will one day be no more. And they need young people to take their place. They need young people to step up and to do the farming that they do today. So I've asked Mr. Sloane a whole bunch of questions so I could really get an understanding of the agricultural sector and how it relates to young people. So without any further ado, I'm very pleased to introduce this interview with Mr. Matlatsi Sloane, the Deputy Director for Sector Transformation Program Support at the Department of Agriculture, Land Reform and Rural Development. Enjoy. Mr. Sloane is the Deputy Director for Sector Transformation Programs Support at the Department of Agriculture, Land Reform and Rural Development. And the reason why I've invited you on the show today, sir, is because I wanted to discuss the Agritech Youth Expo, and I just also wanted to discuss the role of young people and youth-led enterprises in the future of agriculture. Just, thinking about what are some of the things young people need to do in agriculture, and how can this new generation lead our agriculture sector into new heights? We know that we need job creation. We know that we need inclusive economic growth. So that's a bit of what we'll talk about today. So firstly, can you give me an overview of the Agritech Youth Expo? How is it going so far, and what are some of the most exciting developments there?
Thank you so much, Mr. Tladi, for this particular opportunity. And good afternoon to the Sputnik viewers. Yes, we have just concluded on the two-day Agritech Youth Expo in Bloemfontein in the University of Free State in the Free State province, I beg your pardon. And this is one of the department's June Youth Month commemorative activities that we came about as but another way of us as the department trying to honor the legacy of the 1976 generation by advancing economic empowerment and try our level best to also make some contributions insofar as addressing the escalating rate of youth unemployment in the country. And you'll also know that graduates that are qualified in agriculture related courses are also affected. So and we also wish to promote sustainable livelihoods as part of us having to honor the legacy of human services. Promote that sustainable livelihoods through what? Through opportunities that are available in the sector of agriculture. And it is against that backdrop that we really needed to come up with, something very unique this time around, as but another way of showing that we remain indebted to the courageous, gallant efforts of the young people whose sacrifices and contributions really, without a doubt, help shape the democratic South Africa that we have today. But above all, this expo that had just concluded, in the main, it sought to provide a platform to young people, and not only just young people, industry leaders, and so that a dialogue could then ensue in trying to chart various pathways through which young people can be empowered, and they can also participate not just in the periphery of the sector, but right in the mainstream of the sector, so that they could then meaningfully live up to what government has committed itself to doing, which is to ensure inclusive economic participation of young people in the economy. And obviously we also needed to expose, because it's an Agritech Expo, we also needed to expose the guests or the attendees themselves to some of the opportunities and available programs that are targeting young people in the sector, offered by our government department, our public entities such as your Technology Innovation Agency, your National Youth Development Agency, your Agricultural Research Council, and the likes, and also those that are offered by the University of Free State as well. So as to also, in the very same vein, demonstrate our our resolve that we need to really ensure that we strengthen partnerships, in our effort to make sure that we really advance the youth employment, or rather youth development, or rather empowerment trajectory in the sector. And of course, we also had to afford the young people an opportunity to showcase some of their agricultural products that they are producing, that they are processing, and some of them they are agri-tech kind of products, and some of them they really show that young people are capable of being very innovative.
Yeah, that's actually the part that I'm very, very interested in. So I guess my next question I'm going to ask, still looking generally at the expo, are there any commitments that were made on the government or organizational side that might be interesting, or sort of plans made, directions? And also, can you think of any of the cool or interesting agri-tech products or agricultural products that the students or the youth have presented at the expo? Because, if there's one thing that we have an abundance of right here in our country, it is talent in various sectors, including agriculture. So is there any of these talents that just stand out to you that you can maybe share with us?
Yeah, no, absolutely. One of the panelists, when he was sharing his journey with the view to inspire aspiring and other young people, and including students in the room. He's using, on his farm, an app. He was a panelist here, but during break time, he was monitoring the happenings on his farm, on his app, on his laptop, on his phone, and on his farm as well, which is based in outside Mbombela. His name is Sibuso Mkhali, a farmer with a disability. He's no longer youth, but we assisted him when he was youth, so we wanted him to come and motivate other young people. He also, had partnered with I think it's UCT, with the kind of technology that is capable of detecting the pests in his greenhouses. But here, during the expo as well, we were also exposed to, other young people who had showcased, for instance, the drones. They brought their drones here. And these are the young people who decided to also venture into the agri-tech as a way of trying to ensure that there's cash flow in their agricultural businesses. Because this farmer, for instance, is involved in forestry, in timber production, and is also a beef, farmer. You can just imagine if you were to wait for a cow to be ready to be sold, his finances would suffer, or his business would suffer financially. So as a result, he then creatively decided that let me just tap into the tech, and he enrolled. He took an opportunity to undergo training in drones, and the rest is history. He is helping not only his fellow young producers, but also the adult young farmers out there, black and white, and he's with that kind of a technology, as you may know, he's capable of spraying chemicals to on an 18-hectare farm within 5 minutes. You see, so that's one other technological product that we were exposed to, and right at the end we were also exposed to a student who developed. She had also developed a prototype, but she brought a very small track that she developed. You could see with the wires and all that, a lot still needs to be done on that small track. That track is capable of spraying the field. It is this small. It is just a prototype. It's just, testing it. And it has got a feature that, detects the moisture in the soil, and when the texture, or rather the moisture, is at a particular level, it doesn't irrigate. The truck just passes, it stops the irrigation. So we if I were to share with you other inventions as well, you'll be astonished at the level at which our young people are capable of coming up with quite some astonishing products. Some of them, they are PhD candidates, very young, at the age of 24, late 20s, just before they could reach 30. They are busy with their PhDs, and in their PhDs, they have ensured that they come up with a very user-friendly startup trolleys that hawkers in the rural areas in our townships they can use, and they've donated some of them to some of our rural women in our rural communities. So it's quite a lot, I must say, and some of them really looked into the nutritional aspect of some of the food that we are consuming. To begin to say that in their research, although beef or meat, or we are a grossly meat consuming kind of country, but then there are those people who do not consume meat. What do you then do to them? Soya is there, and therefore they conducted this kind of a research with the necessary some of the agri-technology that they use to make sure that they influence the soya to have a greater amount of proteins. As if that was not enough, our colleagues in the Department of Agriculture, Mr. Tabam Mashiro, also shared with the audience the significance of how one can have a multiplier effect if he or she is a livestock farmer, particularly with cows, with cattle. To begin to say that we need to now look, and this is what he did. He exposed the audience to a new, the approach that it is already there. It has been there for some time. But in South Africa, we are slowly but surely, steadily moving towards it. That of, the IVF of animals, for instance. How do you then, make sure that we have a sperm bank for the bulls, and so many other, and he shared the technology involved in doing that, insofar as artificial insemination is concerned, the collection of semen from the bulls is concerned, and so on and so forth. And ARC also, the Agricultural Research Council, shared with us some of the wonderful technologies that they are using, in their quest to support the smallholder farmers in our country, in our effort to make sure that we have sustainable food security. But I must say that at the heart of everything else that it like is our mission as the department to ensure that we address the aging farmer phenomenon in the sector. Our sector is typified by the aged farmers. The average aged, it was said to be 62 years of age. And that in itself is a threat to any attempt to make sure that we have sustainable food security in the country. But again, at the heart of all our efforts is the issue of us beginning to say that how do we ensure that whilst we address the issue of the escalating rate of youth unemployment in the country, as a sector, we need to be seen to be contributing towards the alleviation thereof, of that kind of a socio-economic challenge. And we deemed it fit that as part of doing that, we need to promote agriculture to the young people. And the better way to do that, we thought it would be for us to introduce them to some of the very critical tenets or aspects within the value chain or within the agri-food systems, among others, which is your technology. They are technologically safe. Almost every young person has got a phone, and other young people inspire them to say that you can do so much with whatever gadget that you have, so that you could help us to make sure that we address some of the climate, challenge related, imposed challenges in the sector, address some of the productivity impeding kind of challenges in that sector through the usage of technology. Because our approach is that of agri-food system. And once you speak of the agri-food system, the entire value chain, you are invoking the fact that you need to be climate smart in your approach as well. And once you become climate smart, there's no way that you can turn a blind eye or ignore the need for us to utilize technology. Yes. And we need innovation. And that kind of innovation must not come anywhere else. It must come from our young farmers.
Yes. I think the angle of trying to attract young people into agriculture, which is perhaps maybe not the most romantic field. It doesn't seem like the dream thing. But firstly, South Africa's economy is agricultural in a big way. So for young people, there's money to be made. And like you say, technology needs to come from our young people as well. And like you are saying right now, it seems like we are very talented with all these technologies that you mentioned. But sometimes we see these brilliant concepts and ideas at expos coming from our brilliant young PhD students, but the ideas struggle to gain commercial traction once the event is over. So from your position in sector transformation, what concrete mechanisms, maybe like funding, mentorship, land access, what concrete mechanisms is the department providing to ensure that these innovations that we get introduced to at this expo can scale up into a business, a sustainable enterprise that can actually alleviate the unemployment and that can deal with climate smart agriculture, like you've been saying?
Thank you so much for that very important question. Yeah, it's one thing for us to be seen to be wanting to promote the sector, to try to lure young people into the sector, but it is very fundamental for us as a department to put in place mechanisms that would be seen to be empowering these young people in a meaningful sense of doing that. We've got the traditional programs wherein every farmer, every person can just apply to gain access to those particular programs, such as the comprehensive agricultural support program. But then we discovered that many young people cannot fully access such grants owing to very steep requirements associated with some of these particular programs. Your comprehensive agricultural support program, your I don't know what happened. Somebody just switched off the light. I don't know whether should I pause and try to switch it on?
I will. All right, before we got interrupted slightly there, you were busy just talking to me about what mechanisms the government is introducing to be able to support young, innovative farmers and move these innovations that we see at the expos into scalable businesses that can support them. So you can continue from there.
All right, thank you so much. Yeah, you see, when we say government, it's a very loaded question because it goes beyond our department. But one thing for sure that I know is that our public entities, your Agricultural Research Council, your PPCB, Perishable Products Export Control Board, your Honesty Board, Biological Products, among others, they've got programs that they have in place that seek to target young people, so as to make sure that, for instance, with the OBP, you can ask yourself, especially in the current situation where we are facing the foot and mouth disease in the country, you can ask yourself whether young people do not have any role to play in the distribution of those vaccines, for instance, in the vaccination process of us having to contain that kind of a disease. And apart from that, in let's say in your ARC, Agricultural Research Council, we have to make sure that there are scientists, and we bring in more scientists, young scientists in the fold, so that they could then take over from those that will be retiring, so that we could then have that succession kind of plan in place. And in the recent past, I've learned of the introduction of the Technology Innovation Fund that was done by the CEO of Technology Innovation Agency. And we are looking forward to partnering with them so that we can then see how best can we create a pathway through which a host of many other young farmers, young producers can also benefit from such funds. But coming back to our Department of Agriculture, for starters, we decided to make sure that at the policy level, we influence how the departmental programs should then be inclined towards addressing some of the socioeconomic challenges that young people are facing. And we are seeking to we are deliberately doing that so as to make sure that 40%, as part of the norms and standards for the designated groups that had been passed, that had been adopted by the department, 40% of the beneficiaries, overall beneficiaries, should be young people of all our departmental programs. And I must say that ever since that was introduced in the 3-4 years ago, there is steady progress towards that, meeting that kind of a target. However, be that as it may, truth be told, if we are to depend on traditional programs that are, that have got an opening and closing date, we are not going to, achieve our objective of having to make sure that we promote the agricultural sector to young people. Because when a young person is facing a problem on his or her farm today regarding the borehole or water pump, and he or she does not have any kind of finance, or funds to address that, we cannot let that kind of a person, young person, to wait for another year for her not to get funding, but to come and apply. And them having to apply, the queue is very long. And as a result, along the way, some of these young people become very despondent. So what we are currently trying to craft, which is still in the pipeline, in the draft stage rather, is to come up with a mechanism that we would term the Youth Employment Fund in the agricultural sector. Something similar to what the NYDA has for all the sectors, but this one would solely be focusing on assisting young farmers. And for instance, maybe we can begin to say that this fund will assist young farmers that are requesting for any kind of support, it be monetary or non-monetary, that is not exceeding $500,000, for instance, so as to try to bridge that kind of a gap. Because believe you me, the narrative that young people are not interested in agriculture, we need to really disillusion it. Many young people come to the department, we are overwhelmed with the kind of requests from the department. And as a department, when they come to us to national, we direct them to the provinces, where implementation and these programs and funding should be accessed. And it's quite a high number of young people that go there and they come back to us to say, but I've been on a waiting list, or I've been applying and I'm not getting any note. And again, we should also juxtapose that with the shrinking fiscus as well in the country. Many of our programs continue to experience a cut in terms of their budgets. And you can imagine, the appetite from young people is increasing on one hand. On the other hand, from government, the fiscus is dropping. That's where now it brings into the whole equation the importance of us having to develop a multi-stakeholder approach, the public-private partnership. That's where then it becomes very, very critical. And I must say that we have also partnered with the National Youth Development Agency as but another way of trying to say, and an MOU had been signed, I think late last year, if not early this year. And we're trying to begin to say that how can we then maximize support of the two entities, the NYDA and our department, in our quest to make sure that young people get the necessary support.
We've spoken about quite a lot as it pertains to the youth in agriculture, about more programs to support them, about the absolute talent that they have in all of these innovations that young people come up with. But now, we also spoke about the connection to the land issue. So I think we've touched base on quite a lot, but maybe I would end off by asking, as we close this Agritech Youth Expo, is that what would the success of our agricultural plans look like? What can young people expect should everything go right from the department standpoint?
Yeah, thank you so much. Number one, we considered to some of the challenges that a lot of challenges that the young people had raised, and we had taken it upon ourselves to begin to say that the sooner we come up with those particular intentional kind of interventions in the form of your youth empowerment fund, the better. Again, of importance is the message that we have been conveying across young farmers, students, for them to begin to exert some efforts in ensuring that they become organized, so that it could be easy for us as government, departments and public entities to then be able to involve them in our policy formulations, implementations, and monitoring. Because you can imagine if you've got scores and scores of young people, 2,000 of them, if they are not organized, it's not possible for you to go solicit all the ideas from all of them. Even if you were to do that, it's going to take you longer than if they were organized. And if they are organized, that will also ensure that there is a festival of ideas that they will then share as young people. And when they come to us, it will come as a position to say, as far as the young people in the sector we are concerned, this is what we are advocating for. And given what happened in the recent past, I think it was in November, we launched the World Food Forum South African Youth chapter, which we are envisaging that is going to be a network, a youth-led network movement of young farmers, students, and everybody else who's young within the agri-food systems to really partake in everything that needs to take place, not only in the country, but also at the global level. So for one of the barometers that we can then begin to say will tell us that indeed this was successful. Already I can assure you that given a huge appetite that had emerged during and even after the expo, we're going to come back to the province, to the university, because there are so many young people who are so eager to showcase more of their agri-tech and their ideas. And however, we'll make sure that when we, undertake that follow-up kind of session with them, we will also bring along some of our partners, Technology Innovation Agency or CSIR, and their mother department, which is the Department of Science and Technology and Innovation, so as to make sure that we don't just do hit and run, or we ensure that we were not just here to tick a box. At the end of the day, we want to make sure that more and more young people invest their efforts, and we also have to ensure that there's an increased uptake or interest from young people insofar as the tech part of it in agriculture and innovation is concerned, so that we don't continue to have the saturation that exists or that prevails in the primary production. Yes, in order for everything, the talks, the agri-talk, the agri-tech, the agri-innovation, agro-processing to take place, somebody must have produced the food. We take that. But however, as another way of trying to attract young people into the sector and trying to share with them, inspire them to say, the sector is not only about me getting dirty as a farmer. And you can be a farmer and not get dirty. You can have employees. And a lot of young people who had shared their stories, that's exactly what they've said, that there is also a gap. Many farmers, they cry out loud pertaining to a shortage or lack of markets, and others refuted that to say, no, market is overflowing. It requires young people to creatively come up with good interventions, good innovations in terms of how best can they then assist other young people to go get their produce into the market. But how do you get it to the market is another gap. Another young person can get a bike or a truck and so on and so forth. Another person can supply this, his fellow young farmers, for instance, with chemicals or fertilizers. They can just wait there and they can just bring them. But of importance as well, I think 2, if not 3 of the young farmers, including the Ms. Tumelo Mototwani, the former ENCA anchor, who's still a young person, and who has been involved in agriculture. She is also developing an application that one could liken it to your Take a Lot, but it's more like your Take a Lot in the sector. She's trying to make sure that these farmers that are out there crying out loud that there's no market, she can then link them with the market. without her being in possession of their produce. Once Mr. Tladi says, I want so many tons of spinach, in no time, in that particular app, in the system, she would then make sure through a company on that particular app to make sure that you get your produce from the farmers. And that in itself is another way of trying to open more markets, expand the market, space, through which a lot of young smallholder farmers can really benefit from. But of importance as well, we have also, considered that there's a need for us also to increase the uptake of bursary holders. We need to increase our bursaries. We need to also increase the uptake as it pertains to our graduate placement program, wherein we place young people as a department on farms for a period of 2 years, for them to gain the on-the-job experience so that they could then pursue their entrepreneurship in the sector. And that in itself, it will help us at the end of the day, because the end goal, Mr. Tladi, is nothing else but to increase a pool of young producers in the sector. And not only young producers, but young professionals as well, across the sector, across the agri-food system. That's the message to go. We would want to have more and more of the Siyaha Tladis who would be involved in the agri-talk, because we're involved in an agri-talk at the moment. The more we talk about it, the more many people know about it, and the more we disillusion them about some of the negativities that they may have had about the sector, because there's a green gold in this sector, and they really need to be exposed to the challenges. But I'm not the challenges, the benefits. But we should also be very blunt with them about the kind of challenges that they will encounter, whether they like it or not. Some of which, or most of which, are very natural. You plant and right on the verge, or when you are just about to harvest, you are hit by a storm. Do you have insurance? And Land Bank was here as well to share with them some of those particular products that they are offering. Aimed at mitigating against some of the risks, but some of them, unfortunately, they are inevitable.
Oh, no, I think it has been quite a substantive agri-talk, like you say. And thank you so much for joining me for this talk. I think should all these plans go right, young people could have a very bright future in the agricultural business in South Africa. And like you say, across the entire value chain, it's not only about farmers, but it's about people who are talking about farming, people who are making agri-tech, people who are doing the logistics networks. And it seems like there's a lot of potential in South Africa for growth in that regard, despite the challenges that we do face. So thank you so much for joining us on the show today. You've taught us quite a lot. Thank you for joining us, Mrs. Flwan. All right. As Matthew McConaughey says, we come to the end of our program today. And as we do conclude the show, I think two themes stand out, right? First is that youth empowerment cannot be confined to speeches and commemorations. And I'm speaking to our leadership here. I've heard personally, I'm a journalist. I attend all of these events where our ministers are speaking about youth empowerment. I was there when President Cyril Ramaphosa promised to put a certain amount of money into youth-owned businesses when South Africa was ascending into Afrexim Bank. I've heard our president speak about empowering the youth over and over again. I've heard our ministers speak about empowering the youth. But the fact is that I've heard them speaking a lot, and that's not enough. Youth empowerment cannot be confined to speeches and commemorations. It must be reflected in practical opportunities. Practical opportunities that allow young people to participate meaningfully in society and in the economy. whether through learner leadership structures that encourage democratic participation, like we spoke about during our first conversation, or through agricultural innovation programs that create pathways into entrepreneurship and economic activity. No matter what it is, young people need platforms where they can develop their skills and contribute to national development. Failing this, I can't see where we go as South Africa. If we fail young people, we fail South Africa. We fail the project of being a country as soon as you fail young people. The second theme that stands out for me is that South Africa's future is going to depend on how effectively it invests in its youth. And I guess it's pretty much married to the first point as well, that you fail youth, you fail the project of being a country. The leaders, innovators, the entrepreneurs, the public servants who are going to shape the country over the decades are already sitting in classrooms. They're building businesses already. They're developing solutions to some of our problems already. And they must be supported. They must be invested in. So this Youth Month needs to remind us not only of the sacrifices made by previous generations, but also of our responsibility to create opportunities for the next generation to not only continue, but to thrive. We want to see a world of young African people thriving. And that's the conversation we've been having today. Thank you so much for joining us. I will be back again. Until next time, I have been Siya Khatladi, and I am out of here.